So I want to start with you, Mrs. Anoud, and please take the floor. We're very eager to hear about the EBRD structure on nature-positive, blue-aligned investments and measures verified outcome.
Thank you, Yasmin, and thank you for the organizers for the invite. It's a pleasure being here with you, and any reason to leave cloudy, rainy London and to be here in beautiful Sharm el-Sheikh. So thank you for the invite and for the sun very much. I also want to say that it's really nice to be surrounded by beautiful minds from the Arab world that care so much about our environment, because no one will care about our environment and our people like ourselves. So it's a pleasure being here, and maybe I can stand and start with a presentation if that's okay. So we've been talking a lot about the academic research and the work that a lot of scientists and experts have done in the field. And mine is a bit shifting to the financing of all this work. My work has been focused on nature finance and policy at the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development. And the European Bank is a multilateral development bank that is focused on developing in different countries of operation, including more than 40 countries around the world. So we talked a lot about the blue economy, and I think something that we haven't talked about all the components that are in the blue economy, because we have wastewater treatment, we have tourism, we have ports, we have numerous opportunities in the blue economy that we don't usually talk about. And that's why, for example, actually, the question that came up about academically speaking, do we just focus on marine biologists or creating jobs for certain people or certain degrees? And the answer is no. I'm not a marine biologist myself. I come from a finance and policy background, yet I'm working on nature finance. So I look at transactions and projects and see how I can combine nature into them. And one thing that's important to say is that nature finance, conservation, and economic development should be hand in hand. They're not in competition, and that's the issue that we face. We think about الوظائف and how we need to create jobs, but we think that if we look at conservation of the environment, it means that we'll not be able to develop economically as well as we could do. If we could move one slide, please. Thank you. So EBRD, as I said, is a multilateral development bank working on more than 40 countries. And in the Middle East, we work on Egypt, Jordan, Lebanon, Morocco, Tunisia, West Bank, and Gaza. And most of our investments are in the private sector. So تقريباً 75 to 78% of our investments are in the private sector. If we can go next. So as I said, I'm an expert of nature finance, but as you can see, the blue economy is an integral part of nature finance because we talk about blue-green infrastructure, we talk about pollution prevention with circular economy, and we also talk about primary production and nature governance. So this is most of the work that EBRD is focusing on when we talk about nature finance, and this is why I'm here with you today. So how does EBRD financing work? So our financing, we always say it's a toolbox of offering. It includes financing package, which is usually loans, equity, and guarantees. And it includes capacity building. And this is where we work with consultants, work with our clients on project preparation, feasibility studies, implementation support, and such. And then we have the third component, which is the policy advisory work, and that is focused on regulatory or legal framework, institutional framework, or sector competitiveness. But of course, our work is very much demand-driven, and it depends on the request of the client that we are working with. And the thing is that a question that I always get is blended finance. What makes Multilateral Development Institute special is that we have the ability of blending finance. So we don't just give finance as they are, but we blend them with either grants, concessional funds, or guarantees that make the repayment of the loan easier and makes it slightly cheaper in some cases where the return of the investment is not clear. So for us, this is how the blue economy looks like. We call it the blue pool, and it includes investment in sustainable blue economy activities. This means we have the project promoter contribution or the co-lender debt. We have the EBRD commercial loan, and we have concessional loan, investment grant, and project preparation and implementation support. All this work, of course, is supported by donors fund that allow us to do the concessional finance, including the guarantees and such, and gives us an improved ecosystem outcomes, because when we look at these investments, we look at them as from an ecosystem perspective rather than just individual investments. So challenges and opportunities, just very quickly, of course, the challenges are numerous. There are market barriers, there are market failures, and market barriers include capacity and technical barriers, which I'm not going to bore you with. We've heard a lot about from in the past and yesterday and a little bit today. But then there are also one thing that I want to say, which is prioritization. Priority given to more immediate concerns, and that's an issue that we face. And actually, I just have a quick story to share with you. I had a meeting with a client who was a mayor in our countries of operation. And the mayor asked me about a project with nature component, and when I gave him the timeline for implementation, for monitoring and evaluation, he looked at me and he's like, you know I will be dead by then, right? إنه أنا ما رح أكون عايش أشوف هذا الانvestment وهذا التطوير عم بينعمل. And he was right, to be fair to him, but at the same time, this is the nature of these projects. They have a much longer period of time, and I understand sometimes we look for little wins when we actually are looking for something more long-term. And then in terms of the opportunity, as we say, it's an ocean of opportunities, and we mentioned earlier the key sectors. We have aquaculture, blue biotechnology, shipping and ports, water management, and such that you all are very familiar with. So how do we turn all this theory into practice? I thought I could share with you a few of our investments. How are we investing in the blue economy as a European Bank for Reconstruction and Development? So as a Jordanian, I will start with my country, Jordan. We have our investments in Aqaba and Ayla Oasis. EBRD investment, this is actually the second investment, and we have colleagues here from ASISA and from the research for marine research in Jordan. They could tell you much more than I would about this project. But from a financial aspect, what we did is a 35.5 million secured loan. And then we combined a grant to it, and actually I have it to be confirmed, but it was just confirmed this morning. So we have a grant of 300,000 to implement it. And how does that work? The project achieves the following. It's sustainable tourism. It is not just big, unlimited resorts. We are shifting to more boutique, to more intimate, to more personal experiences while you're touring a country, and not just on a massive scale. And we are looking for sustainability as well as users. And for this project, we have support for EDGE certification, so the building is green, which is already fantastic. We have inclusive, which is first work-based learning program to support tourism, which goes back to the point that was raised, what sort of trainings do we provide? And what my favorite part of this project is that coral conservation work. So what we're doing is that we're working to increase the coral conservation by the coral species by 240% in Aqaba in the Red Sea. And the second project is in Egypt, given that we're hosted here in Egypt. It's the Kitchener Drain. It's a solid waste. And you might say, why is it solid waste, a blue economy investment? But at the end of the day, when we're not dealing with wastewater or solid waste, they all end up in the Red Sea or in the oceans. So this is the problem that we're trying to also solve. For this plan, again, it's concessional finance. So what we have is that we have a technical grant, which is TC grant is technical advisory, where we do the feasibility studies, the assessments, the consultants being hired to work closely with the client. And then we have a grant from the EU, and it's 3 million. And then the EBRD loan itself, 79 million. And as you can say, the project achieves that. We have environmental conditions that include ocean pollution reduction. This way, الفضلات والأوساخ ما عم تنزل بالبحر الأحمر بتتكرر قبل ما ينعاد تدويرها. And then we have, of course, improved municipal solid waste management in deprived rural areas. Sorry, and this is another project, Gulmim wastewater in Morocco, and you have the investment plan as well here. But I'm being told that I need to wrap up, so the other things we can talk about later on when we're presenting. Thank you.
Now I have like a question for the three of you, actually, because I'm very interested in, like, since the public funds in development, there's an issue of shortage and there's a development crisis that is happening. And there's also a struggle with the loans and the issues of interest and all of that. I wonder if I ask the three of you, if you could choose to change one policy or introduce a policy or an instrument or for the next years to work on blue economy, what is gonna be and how? Because I know now the bank has a very different idea than the civil society, and with the economic and political crisis and all what's happening and environmental crisis, of course, it's becoming more and more challenging to work on the blue economy. So how can you change that?
Thank you for the question and for your presentation and Bradley's presentation online. هو محمد قبل البرزنتيشن حكى لي انه حيكون في شويه اكشن بالبرزنتيشن تاعته لانه هي بالضبط عكس البرزنتيشن تاعتي where he's talking about the multilateral development funds and the loans and such. So I appreciate it, but I also have a response to that because, and it actually comes to your question, is that the need is massive. The need is very large for the blue economy. So to rely on grants on its own is not going to be enough. So that's the main problem. And the second problem is that we relied on grants in the past and we've seen what happened. They could just stop and cut them overnight, and that would leave us extremely paralyzed, not sure how we can move forward. So we have to keep that in mind. And I'm not saying loans are the solution, of course not. But at the end of the day, also with the blue economy, when we look at the investments, yes, the return sometimes is not clear because some of the colleagues already mentioned, when we look at the returns, we don't value ecosystem services the way we should. For example, السمكة اللي بالبحر, sorry, I'm switching between English and Arabic. I hope that's okay for the translators and interpreters. بس السمكة اللي بالبحر اللي نحن لما تكون عايشة بالبحر الفاليو تاعتها صفر. لكن السمكة إمتى بيكون لها value؟ لما تنصاد ولما نبيعها بالماركت. So as an alive fish, it's zero, it has zero value. But as a dead fish, we sell it per kilogram. And I see someone is saying no, so I would love to hear from you once we open it for questions. So that's the thing we need to keep in mind when we talk about loans and finance and grants and such. And in terms of one policy that we would like to see, so a lot of the work is being discussed now on biodiversity credits, on blue credits, on carbon credits, to find alternative revenue stream. So for me, what I would like to do is let's just start piloting. So my policy would be allow starting to pilot, so we can actually start looking into, can we rely on biodiversity credit and on carbon credit as alternative revenue so they can have the payback for the interest in that case. Sure, thank you very much, Yasmin and Bradley, for this comment. My closing remarks is that there's still a lot of work to do, of course. We need to pilot, we need to see how we can make things feasible in the blue economy and the nature finance as well. Things are very expensive now in the nature finance, but just the way the green finance started, where renewable energy was extremely expensive as well, and now it became much more affordable. So we are moving in the right direction, and the private sector is realizing that working on conservation of the environment is becoming a business need, not something on the side as social responsibility, which is already extremely hopeful and important, because they know if we have a resort and the sea is dirty and there are no coral reefs, no fish, then there's no way they will have tourists. So they know that it goes hand in hand. Thank you.